Let's start with the easy part. Could do the softball one first. Just take a minute or two and tell us a little bit. Remind everybody of your background and how you got here and what gets you up in the morning.
Sounds good. Yeah. So background, been excited about space probably most of my life, but that manifested by getting a PhD early on in astrophysics, and then sort of working in that. And then early 2000s, actually had the opportunity to go into the DC area and actually join something called the Science and Technology Policy Institute, where I led the space portfolio under the Institute for Defense Analysis. And that was around the time that SpaceX was getting going, that there was a lot of questions about US space launch capability. And so really got deeply involved as SpaceX was starting to get underway, trying to sort of make the case for some investment. Ultimately, that led to the COTS program. So this is about the 2004, 2006 timeframe. Working with them, did a lot of work on P&T strategy, position, navigation, and timing, and a ton of related stuff, launch propulsion. But one of the big takeaways from that for me, so I after I left academia, I actually ended up in the consulting world, McKinsey and Company, for a few years before I did the space work. So came in with that very sort of business-oriented approach and or capitalism, as Sean mentioned earlier. And so it was really looking at what was going on and the potential for building markets. And that was what I thought was really interesting about Elon's approach at the time with SpaceX, trying to really think about how do we restructure how we think about paying for space assets rather than doing it on a cost plus kind of basis or regular, essentially licensed technology for, or I should say, building up technology by the primes and so forth. It's like, how do we bring this as a fixed price kind of capability? And of course, that led to the COTS program, and everybody at that time was saying how he was going to fail. I remember multiple meetings with primes and such. He has no idea what he's doing. He's going to fail. Well, obviously that didn't happen. But that I think really led to a lot of interesting transformation, and that's of course where we are with space launch capabilities ramping up rapidly, them dominating a lot of the launch capabilities. And I think it's a lot of the mindset they brought along the way. I think where we are now is very similar to that. And so been watching a lot about what's been going on in terms of the formation of markets. How do we really get to a real capitalism in space kind of mindset? So over the last few years, been really working a lot more on kind of thinking about the whole sort of merging that sort of business mentality in. And so we launched Orbital Progress a couple of months ago. Spent the last couple of months really setting up a lot of the institutional infrastructure for that, but all about really stimulating and driving that market mentality. Capitalism in space.
Good. Here's the thing. You mentioned this. You did a post this morning, which I responded to, and you thanks for posting that. You gave us a plug.
Of course.
But you mentioned basically is still to this day, most of that commercial launch and everything else we're doing is all government driven. Government purchase orders. That's what's driving most of it. Billions and billions that are being spent every year. But you said actual true private on private work only amounts to about $6 billion of that total.
Well, let me edit that just a little bit.
Okay.
So if you look at the growth of the space economy over 2015 to 2025, so about that 10-year stretch, the growth about 70 billion in growth in the in kind of the space economy, and there's different ways of measuring that. We can get into that, of course.
Sure.
But there's about 70 billion in growth in terms of stuff that was driving space sustaining activity, and by that I mean revenues going into building the satellites, building the ground infrastructure, building the launch vehicles, and all the capabilities that ultimately drive revenue from direct space applications. So 70 billion in growth, 90% of that was government, it's about 64 billion or so, but only 6 billion was commercial activity. So
B2B as opposed to G2B, I guess.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah. So you formed this organization to fix that?